Hello, Ben here from Supercoach Insider, bringing you my pre-round zero team reveal. It's been a little while. I am from the sunny sunshine state of Brisbane, and as you would know, it's getting a little bit hectic here. So I thought, before I lose power for a few days and may or may not be able to watch the football, fingers crossed. But hey, let's get into my team reveal. First of all, when it's raining and you have time off work and you're trying to keep the kids busy, what better thing to do than to day drink? So, any of you up in Brisbane, shout out to you as well. Chris, I know, and Swizz is just giving us good hopes. So, shout out as well. SC Insider 100 if you haven't followed us already. Cheers. So, I haven't been as active on the line. This week I was going to do a lot of recording, but obviously we've been doing preparations. And that's kind of thrown a monkey in the wrench a little bit. But on the positive side, though, out of all of this, Brisbane are not playing anymore, which means that they get to reschedule their game to round 3, which is awesome because the Lions have one of the most favourable draws. Now, I'm not being biased. I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit biased, but when you have a look at who they play, I honestly, and this is going to impact my team, right? I can't get enough of them in. And, you know, I mean, we play Sydney round 1, so they're missing a couple of their mids. You know, Callum Mills, Goulden, they're out. Then they play West Coast. So West Coast at home. They play Geelong after that, right? And then they play Richmond. Then the Dogs, who are also missing. Treloar might be back around that round 4 mark. I think they're saying about round 3, round 4. But obviously Bontempelli's not there either. The Pies, who are pretty much Dacos and Perryman, like... Saints, Suns, North. So, I mean, it is a very, very, very favourable draw to start this year. So it has changed a lot of things, which means straight away, my initial thought is, Geelong players, Brisbane players are now back in the fold. Now, I can only fit so many in, as you would know. So defence, the rookies are a little bit shaky. So I'm going to talk through my theory and my strategy coming into this. But as far as draws, and this is going to impact the way I think about starting this season. So number one, if you followed me so far, value is what I'm kind of looking at, some of these stepping stones to be able to move up. So I was very much mid-price heavy. I've kind of backed a little bit off that because some rookies have sort of stood up. Some premiums I like as far as their draws. But I am still trying to look at value. Now, I want to be aggressive. I want to start with players that have a really good first sort of 6 weeks because of the bye 2, 3, 4. So I'm looking at teams that will be able to really leapfrog and people for best 18 that have a really high ceiling. So the ones I'm looking for, Brisbane Lions I've just gone through. Carlton as well have a really good draw. Richmond, Hawks, Bulldogs, Collingwood, West Coast, North. I think are very favourable as well, particularly for the mids again, because you look at, so the Dogs are losing Bontempelli. So again, some favourable sort of stuff there, plus a couple of the new teams. So Richmond, new, midfield, West Coast as well, same kind of thing where some of those midfielders, maybe don't work as hard defensively, so good players can get on the chain. The other one as well is Port Adelaide have a really good start as well. Collingwood to start, then Richmond, Essendon, Saints, Hawks, Sydney, North. Dogs, Bonds should be back maybe around that point. But again, not too bad when you sort of look at teams that you might want to start as far as premiums. And I think the other one I hadn't spoken about was Fremantle. I think it's probably the only other one. And I'm big on Fremantle as far as the actual draw because similar to the Lions, I kind of rate Fremantle, Carlton, Lions as probably the 3 best ones. Geelong to start, then Sydney. So again, Sydney are missing some mids. West Coast as the Derby. Bulldogs. So they're going to... It'll be interesting to see if, Treloar's back for that one. Richmond, Melbourne, Adelaide. So it does open up. So that's how I'm kind of thinking about starting this, which means, and this leads into my team, I'm trying not to listen to as many people and as many voices now, because sometimes you can get very, very similar teams and it makes it hard to kind of follow. So everyone's kind of going, okay, like your Short, your Perryman, your Roberts, and then, loading up on, so your Rosie and stuff like that are now going to be really big. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I do like them. So this is where I'm starting. So in my back line, lo and behold, number 1 has to be Sheasel. If you don't have him, he just towed up. So he's going to have those kind of games. High ceiling. He's a midfielder. He'll push forward a little bit. But I think it's just going to be really beneficial, especially if he gets, mid DPP, which he will. So it's going to make everything much better for that. So highly owned. He's just going to hurt you otherwise. 66% owned. So I think flaunt with risk if you will. Now, this is where my team changes. I'm going to the Dane Zorko. Fan favorite, 11% owned. But again, it's mainly to do with the early draw. When you look at the buys, so let's focus on just round 2, 3, and 4. So Brisbane in round 2 are playing the Eagles, so it's best 18. Then Geelong, obviously it'll be best 18. And then Richmond, again, best 18. So Eagles and West Coast, when it's best 18... how can you not, right? If he can go 170, and I've seen people that have Whitfield, I'm like, dude, just put in Zorko and get the extra points. Like when they're playing West Coast, he could go 170. He's that attacking defensive mid that's going defensive defender, so attacking defender that's going to push up. He had the absolute notorious for the kickouts if the ball does get down there, right? So he's just got an absolute monopoly on it. So I think if you're going to do it, that's how I'm sort of looking at starting, which means that if I've spoken about that draw, you should automatically know that number 1 now in my midfield is Lachie Neale. Can't go against him for the exact same reasons that I just said for round 2 and round 4, West Coast and Richmond. Like, seriously, you just have to. His ownership's at 22%. The best part is no one will get a look in now to see how they're going, but for me... again, the draw, the premium, and most other premiums, so Bont, Butters, Flanders, Dacos had some injury concerns, but obviously he's fine now. Treloar, there's a whole bunch of other people that are out injured, so why not start with one of the best players to begin with, and they have a good draw. And I thank the AFL for taking care of the Lions because we started not great last year, and they go, you know what, let's just give you West Coast and Richmond at the start of the year. So at least that way you're not starting 0 and 4. And I thank them for that. So back into the defensive line. This is one person. Now I have gone Short. I have gone Roberts. I have gone Perryman. And I have gone 5 deep in defense. So it is still an option. Roberts with the wet game, maybe not so much with this weekend. Perryman as a contested mid, I think should be better for it for this round. And the same way, like with Perryman, the same way... I'm looking, in the preseason, it's a lot more uncontested footy. It's a lot more on the outside and formulas and everything like that. So that's where I think Rosie really flourished. Rosie could definitely do some damage. I don't know if there's enough meat on the bone. So he could go 110 at that price, but there are a couple others I'm looking at. So for me, in that defensive line, now this is someone I was impressed with. I wish I wasn't. Swizz is all on this guy, Clark. And I try not to let people influence my thoughts. However, he could definitely become someone cheaper. But the way he plays and the game that I saw on the weekend had some kick out, so shared some probably with Ryan. That's fine. He was also when it was up on, say, the defensive flank and it was pushing into the midfield, on those stoppages, he was actually standing at the back of those stoppages for a handball receive, which says to me that if it goes in deep, he's working really hard to the defense to get the cheap ball, the link ups, the kick outs. If he didn't get the kick out, he pretty much starts on one side, led straight to the boundary and got the kick in, like from Ryan, kicked it to him. So I think he's just going to absolutely seagull it. And then at stoppages, he's pushing at a handball receive from the back end of that. So I think it's just a mass accumulation, high points. And if they do want to play quicker, that just means that it's probably more ball for him. So I am interested in Clark. That's why I think I keep coming back to him. So I'm like, you know what? Low owned, 8% I think it is. So I'm just going to put him in. And again, they do have a fairly favorable draw, so I expect some possible upside from that. Then the last one I just spoke about, so the Periwinkle, Mr. Perryman, midfield role, a defender playing a mid spot. I think as the defensive pressure pushes in, more tackles, more outlets, more contested ball. I think that should help his scoring as well, which is why I'm kind of leaning to him. And he's a little bit cheaper. So there is a little bit of a difference there. And then to round it out, so if I go into defense, I'm going mainly for ownership here. Zach Reed, I think, plays. Bo Allen, very contentious. I'm still interested enough in him, except for the fact that he played poorly. I still think he's best 22. It'll be interesting though. But he's someone I'm not starting, but I would like to watch, because if he comes out with a couple of good scores, well, then that would be like any normal rookie correction that I'm looking at. Patton has now come into the side, so he'll get a good look in this week in a wet game. Played on, like, named on field, so he is someone that I think I'm going to take a couple more risks on these rookies. The reason I hate starting, and I know you can easily go, okay, well, and this is the logic here. I've had 5 deep in defense. I know a few others are going 5 deep, and they're going, well, the mid rookies are better and the rest of it, and I'll get into my thoughts on that. But also, we're playing 23 players with one of them not counting anyway. Now, if Stone, and I'm going to bring him in at this point, if Stone plays and plays defense and gets DPP, at round 6 you get a little bit of coverage there anyway. If my rookies aren't that great, I would expect that maybe I have to carry them at a worse and then upgrade, right? Wait till the first buy to go through. Then I can look at probably a Mills will come in at that point. By the time I get to that round 5, round 6, I can then just bring him in, and all of a sudden my team is much stronger. So I don't think it's that dire that you start with 5, which means that you can have a little bit of luck with these rookies, because I think at most times you really start with 2 rookies anyway. On field, one of them you expect to kind of do well, and that's where I'm at. So I've got Leak in at that point. Trainer, I'd like to kind of see something as far as his name, but I'm not so sure about him and his security. And the other one I'm looking at, this is a bit of a left field, O'Sullivan. Now, he can easily become someone else. He could become a trainer. He could become an Allen, depending on teams named and the rest of it. He got 7 touches in the first quarter that they played, and then he rested the game, right? So this is twofold on this one. Wasn't great. I was like, yeah, you've done enough, mate. Get off the field. I like you. And then he didn't come back on. So then I'm like starting to second guess myself. Do I like this guy or not like this guy? But if he didn't handball it and he kicked more of those, he would have scored way better. The fact that he went off, obviously you don't get any scaling or the rest of it, so his score just bottomed out. But now this is going to be the big if, because I'm taking a risk on him rather than going with, say, Sam DeConing. Now, if he's Ruck, that means that they're pretty much looking for O'Sullivan to be that defensive player. In intercept, he was the best intercept mark in his year. A good kick as well. So I'm thinking there's a lot of room to step up. A lot of the talk from Geelong was, watch out for this person. That he's much better. He's faster. He's stronger. He's someone to watch out for this season. So I still think he's in their team. Now, the only way that could get mucked up is if maybe he plays poorly, Sam DeConing goes back into defense, and then they bring in some crap Ruck. So, yeah, that's where it's fraught with danger. However, most rookies are, so I think this is where I'm kind of looking to lean at this point in time, and I would put him on field probably with Leak. So depending, Patton and Leak probably would be the main 2. O'Sullivan, I think, has high potential, but also he could drop a bad game. So make of it as you will. Now, premiums in the midfield. Now, here's something different. I was big on Sarong. I'm still big on Sarong. Watching that game, though, and it's all subjective, I thought he looked a little stocky. Now, I don't want to body shame any player, obviously, because I'm probably a bit stocky myself at this moment. But for a mid, he just looked a little stocky, which is great for an in and under midfielder, but then they just rested him at like full forward. The other person that was dominant was Brayshaw. Now, Brayshaw gets his points in different ways. The back half of his season was very impressive, like a lot of 120s, 130s. And with their soft draw, I want one of them. Now, I'd like to go Sarong, but based off the eye test I had, and he did well, he's still a contested beast. But the fact that they were resting him full forward and the visual, Brayshaw looked in peak condition, like peak fitness, peak, just absolute amazing, right? So for that and that alone is the difference, and I am bringing in the Brayshaw into my team. Now, I'm going Brayshaw instead of, say, a Connor Rosie. Now, if I need the money and I need 70K, then yeah, sure, Brayshaw down to Rosie. But for 70K, I get a guy that I think can go 110, 115, rather than a Rosie who I think I'll have to trade anyway. So that's it. That's pretty much where the thought line is, plus the soft draw on Fremantle. I do want numerous Fremantle players in my team. I do want numerous Lions players in my team. I do want numerous Carlton if I can get there. If Carlton find a premium, let me know. Yeah, and Port Adelaide, I think their run's a little later, so it'll be not during the best 18. So I'm looking for those high players. Sarong or Brayshaw will be in my side because I put them with a VC, with the Lockie Neal C on those rounds if Cherry or someone doesn't do it for me. So that's where I'm at with that one. Now, this is where Value Town comes in. These next three, I think, can average 110 to 115, at least to start the year. So Clayton Oliver is the easy one, right? So Clayton Oliver looked good, kicked numerous goals, was midfield CBA, but then like rested half forward flank and was able to get some marks and kick some goals. So I think it probably won't be the 120s that we've seen based on the fact that he did get out of that CBA a little bit. But I think as the confidence grows, I still think he's a 115 kind of guy at least, which brings a lot of value, and he's in my team. Now, based on that soft draw that I speak about, Adam Chera is another one that I'm looking at. He could again become Rosie because I think Rosie maybe more ceiling for me, but as far as like it's 70, 80K cheaper, so price, right? Chera can go up to 550. If I don't like him, I can move him at a later point. But again, their draw is just absolutely amazing. So they play Richmond round 1, Hawks in round 2 in the bye, Dogs in round 3 in the bye, Pies round 4 in the bye, but then go West Coast North straight after that. So I think there is a lot of room for Chera to be the third one in now. Cripps will be the in and under. Walsh will get the attention. I think Chera will just run around and do his thing. And I think there's enough room on that to get to him to about a 108, 110 average over the first sort of 6 to 8 weeks. And then, and the reason I'm thinking that, and the next person is the exact same, because if they start off with a nice run and they start to average 110 over 6 to 8, then other people will be looking to bring them in and hoping that they'll continue it for the season, which they may or may not. I don't know if he'll keep it and maintain it, but at least I'm on early, and then that way I can move off if I need to. Whereas if they start well and you bring them in later, then you're kind of like, well, hang on, I've brought them in thinking they're going to be this big premium player, like a Matt Rahal, averaging 120 and then ends up averaging 102 for the season. It hurts. So I want to start on them, get that price rise, and be flexible, because the one thing I want to be is flexible. So you've got your Perryman can be flexible. A whole bunch of others where you have a little bit of money, these mid prices that you can kind of move and be flexible. Now, I have wanted Peatling. He's someone I would like to fit into my side. If things don't work out, then say a Chera could become a Peatling if I need the money. But I would like another stepping stone, and I would like someone to step up and in. Now, the other one as well, I'm going all in, by the way, I'm going Will and Levi, the double boys. Again, soft draw to start. I wasn't big on it early, but with that soft draw, I mean, I think Levi went 140 odd against West Coast in his first season, let alone he came back at the end of last year. He's got a full preseason under his belt now, was impressive in the final series. I think Lockie Neal's just going to go around and do his thing. Dunkley will be the defensive one, and Ashcroft's is going to get off the chain. So I think he could go 110 this season, and at 440K, I'm on it. I wasn't, and this is where the buy comes into it substantially, because if I was going to miss out that one round, it's not worth it, right? I didn't want to be having too many buy players carrying through unless their value maybe in defense or something, because we're already a bit thin anyway. So yeah, Will Ashcroft, which leaves me with, and who would have thought? And I don't know if there's that many people running multiple, but we'll see. And so, get rid of you. So in that midfield mix then, let me just have a look at my team that I saved earlier. And this is where I'm going to talk about some of these other midfielders, because there's a little bit of thought to this, and there are some people I'm actually ignoring. Now, it's hard, right? And there's a reason why I'm kind of ignoring some. I'm just backing my gut. A lot of people are going with a few, so I'm going to talk about the heavily owned players that I'm probably not going at this point. However, Nevitt, I think, is in. Sheldrick is in. Sardis is in. Boxall is at this point based on how he played. Boxall is in. And the last one, this is open to interpretation, depending on what's happening with money and the rest of it. Murphy Reed, I don't mind him based on the fact he's a smart link-up player, and I think they'll go to him and help him link up. But he has made a couple of mistakes that I've seen, so we'll just see what's kind of happening. He's probably the first one out if the rookie changes at this point. So I'm not as set. If I go down, so say I go Chera down, that brings me 100k. I might then be able to move, say, Reed up, plus also upgrade another rookie. So we'll see how we go with that. Now, the ones I'm disregarding so far, Finn O'Sullivan, outside player, did well, right? But again, that preseason game, he did well. He pushed back, got some marks. He's got a good decision making. He had good kicks, which has high efficiency, right? Now, was criticised in juniors for maybe low disposals, like a Bontempelli type, sort of 17 to 20 touches a game. But with a Bontempelli, the high impact, it's going to be there. Now, again, when we get more contested footy, the pressure ramps up. Is he still going to be able to get that 90 super coach and get that favourable SC to DT performance? I'm not as sure. Now, I love him as a player. For keeper leagues, all on Finn O'Sullivan, right? Love him. I think he's going to be absolutely amazing. I think he's great. Great for the team, great for the sport and all the rest of it. However, these outside players, they could go a little bit up and down as far as scoring. Some weeks they might go well. I mean, we saw Callahan on the wing go 100 in round 1, and everyone's like, oh, yes, I started him or correct him. So 200k mid he was at that point, and then follows it up with some 60s and just kills you, right? So that's what I'm kind of thinking. Same as O'Driscoll. So Nod, I like him. He's very talented. He could average 70 and make a lot of money. He's someone I probably would put in over Finn O'Sullivan. But again, if he's on the wing, and he only came on halfway through the second game as well, so I'm not sure what's happening there. Maybe he was playing a more favourable role because they were missing some other players. So I'd like to see how he's named in that team. But yeah, wing, not as favourable for me. Even though I like him as a player. So he's someone I do want on my side. Finn I would definitely consider, but I'm looking at maybe upgrading to these guys if I need to, and making some moves. So like a forward mid-price that might not work, or say Chera hasn't worked, then I might be able to kind of make some moves and then free up some cash and then upgrade, right? So say Perryman's not working, I can then just be really aggressive. So I want to be flexible enough that I don't want to go full guns and rookies because that kind of locks you into change. You can't change as easy if you just have full guns, full rookies, and then if your guns don't perform, you're just trading them to another premium. Whereas mid prices allow you some flexibility. You can jump on people a lot earlier. You're not as attached to them as well because you're like, oh, well, you're not doing that great. This person over here is, and you just switch and change, and you're much more flexible. And I think I'm trying to adopt more of the AFL fantasy thoughts, except when it comes to like the draw and captains. So there has been a world where Brayshaw's been a Rosie. That frees up some money to get a more expensive rookie. I'm like, or I can just get Brayshaw. So they're the 50-50s, whereas that 400k mark, I'm looking for more of those guys. I still would consider short. I've still thought about getting rid of Zorko and going short and Roberts and just going full value in defense, waiting for them to pick up 50, 100k, see what's happening, see who's performing, and then upgrading. Sinclair's body's holding up. Is that good? Is Flanders coming back and he's actually starting to perform as he dropped in cash? So that's where I was thinking about those 400k guys. But over those buys, I just think that Zorko and Clark could just really give you a big leg up for 11 and 8% ownerships. So we'll see. I love value. I probably will drop down and go, Sheasel with Short, Roberts, Perryman, and maybe Clark or a Zorko or Stewart. It's definitely possible. And then that way I could then bring a Reed and turn Reed into a Perryman and then push, say, Nevitt to the bench, right? But yeah, so that's why I'm kind of looking at those guys. Lalore, I'd want to see it first. Apparently he might play, but the broken jaw meant he lost a couple kilos. Kako is one as well, 70% ownership. Man, I'm one of the only people without him. So, I think he's a good player. I think he brings a lot to that Essendon mix, but that small high half forward at 150k, that's the issue for me, and I'll be able to at least watch it this weekend. So I know it'll be a wet game, but just to see his work rate, to see how clean he is, what score he gets, will heavily influence. Because if he scores well on the wet, then I'm like, okay, well, what can this guy do with a dry ball? And then he comes into contention. So he's someone I am wanting to watch this weekend and go from there. Nick Dacos, just based off the buy. So if I can go a Brayshaw, a Sarong, a Lockie Neal, I think they'll average more through that first part of the year, and then I can try and upgrade to Dacos. Again, wet weather footy this weekend, I think. So let's see if he gets tagged. And if he has a low score, awesome. That means that he might drop in cash a little bit. So fingers crossed. He is also someone I want to watch this week. Otherwise, they're mostly forwards here. And like say, Sid Draper's the same. Sanders I've cooled on mainly because Trelaw's coming back in a few weeks. So I think that will impact his role a little bit. Still could be good, but you might get more of those 60s, 80s in there, and he still might be a good pick, but I've kind of cooled on him a little bit. Parker I've cooled on a little bit as well. I think Powell's just dominating that midfield. Parker will be there for stability, security, doing the team thing. I don't think he's there to just dominate and be the sole person. Plus, he also kind of talked himself down when they were saying like, oh, would you put yourself in your Supercoach team or whatever, and wasn't that keen on himself. So probably just being humble, but also I'm like, well, that's not great. So maybe I'll just ignore you. Sorry, Parker. Love you. And yeah, Rosie I've already spoken about. So that's that part. Now, in the rucks. I know a few people are fading him. I'm just going Cherry. I'm going De Koning. I'm going Boyd. Heavy ownerships. I do like Gawn. I've thought about going Cherry, Gawn. But again, De Koning's start to this year just again with the high best 18 kind of scenarios. So they play Richmond. I think he should do pretty well there. Hawks makes a really good ruck and a really good negating ruck, but I'm hoping that his mobility could be beneficial in there. Against English, again, mobile ruck against mobile ruck should do pretty well. Pies against Cameron should do fairly well. Then Eagles, North, Geelong. Adelaide can actually get a bit of a run on as well, and Geelong as well can get a bit of a run on. So I think there is enough scope in there that says he has a high ceiling. All you need is one real big high ceiling game, and then he just peaks in price, right? And we've seen that with Rucks. Now, Gawn looked good, played a lot of time on ground, did the right thing as far as getting back to get some intercepts, but there was talks about resting him this year using Campbell, and he didn't quite do it for me on the eye test. Like, played a lot of time, did the things, and kind of got in the right places, which is fair. But I just think De Koning is that number one ruck. I'm just going to start there and then change if I need to. And if they're both firing and Gawn looks good, then I can try and do the Gawn flex thing or see something like that. But yeah, just to try and save a little bit of money on that point. So price per point is what I'm looking at that point. Now, in the flex, I have put in Flynn. This is somewhere I could also try and save some cash. I'd like to put Sheldrick on field if I could. I think he'll score well for the first month. So we'll see how we go on that sense. But Flynn, if he's number one ruck and he holds it, he should do fairly well and fairly serviceable to start. Plays wits. The big O. So after shoulder surgery, big O, it'll be interesting to see how he goes when it's full the rough and the pushing and all the rest of it. So it'll be interesting. The Dockers, so they'll go be against Reedy, so I think he should do pretty well. I don't think Das will be back by that point. Giants, and then Carlton, Bombers. So he should be able to hold his own, I think, in those games, which means that I think he's probably got an 80 to 90 average maybe in him, and to start off well and make some money. Now, if he goes down and he's not named, well, then it just means that I will do the rookie correction. Finn to a rookie, push a Sheldrick or someone else or an expensive rookie into that spot, and then he's gone. All right, it's not like I'm going to just hold him if he's not named. If he's not named, he's gone. It's like any other correction. You're going for the upside in that team. My forwards are very stock standard, and I think you kind of have to be. Caleb Daniel, McRae, Horn Francis, Bailey Smith, Davison. I've got Hewitt in. I know he may or may not play round one. They're working with something, had a setback, quad, and the rest of it. But I just think if he's not playing, unless a rookie stands up, I'll probably start with a full side. Otherwise, it gives me a loophole for a week or two. I still think he's best 22 when he's fit, and I'm going to have to bring him in anyway, so I'd rather just have him. Now, I know a few others are fading, and they're like, yeah, a rookie upgrade. But what if he plays round 2 or 3? Yes, you get your buys in that, you get your loop in there. But if I'm starting with, say, if Boyd's named, if he's not named, it's going to be interesting. If Marshall's fine and Boyd's not named or he's an emergency, well, then Flynn becomes R3 and we go again, right? Or the other consideration, you go Gawn as your R2 if you are keen on Gawn, and then you go Campbell as your R3. Because if Gawn's not playing, Campbell will. So you could always back up and secure your way that way and then use him as your loophole with Gawn on that sense. So really stock standard with that. Stone, and who am I missing? So it's not Kako. Oh, Garcia. Now, Garcia is the other one that I have kind of firmed to. All right, let me just update this. So he's the other one that I have firmed to. Again, I just think he wasn't that impressive in the game gone just by, but some CBAs, he's more of that tackling pressure contested player, and the Saints didn't play well. So I think that'll be a real tune up and a lesson for them. I think he's the tackling type, the pressure type. He'll link up and get that midfield role. So I think for his price, he's someone that I think can make some quick cash with some 80s, etc. I still think he did well enough. He didn't handball it as well. He threw a couple of blind handballs and messed up a couple little things. But I think when the push comes to shove, that contested footy, he's someone that I am pretty big to try and see. And I'd rather his role and his possible upside than, say, an O'Driscoll or someone else, which is why I've kind of, Nevitt or Sheldrick on field, because I think they can score better than some of those other forwards. Davidson, I think, did really well, so he can just start on field, and Hewitt Stone to see how we go. And that's kind of my team. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Have I gone too heavy on Brisbane? Too heavy on Richmond? Not Richmond. I don't even have a Richmond player. Well, there you go. Too heavy on Fremantle. And let me know if my thoughts align with you. Let me know if you're a little bit different. The one area I would consider changing is probably the Zorko Clark down for value, just because I love value. Defenders are so fickle anyway, and they score well. So let's just have a bit of a muck around. So that is my team, but I will tell you how I have had it recently, and let's have a look. So if I did have, say, Short, so let's go. We bring Short in. Let's go with value. We then go with Wanganeen Millera, who is someone I do like. He wasn't that impressive. And then I'll get rid of, say, O'Sullivan and bring in... So we don't have enough cash here, obviously. Roberts. So I do like Roberts. I do like some of those others. 345 is obviously not quite enough cash, which is painful. It's enough for some others. Oh, he's probably a bit expensive there. Let me have a look. Otherwise, like, let's say a Stewart or someone else that might do well, a little bit cheaper. Stewart I do like, as well as Holmes could be the option, and then that would then give me enough room to go and bring in not Perryman. Let's have a look. Mind blank. He's not even that highly owned anymore. Where is he? Adelaide. Has he gone off the boil? Peatling, 11%. Wow, okay, that's interesting then. So that's how I could change it up. And pretty much it's just, I think I liked it the way I had it though, as far as just the premium mix. But this would be a little bit more flexible within that starting squad. A little bit more flexible, a little bit deeper in that defensive line. So again, like Short, Roberts as that 5, knowing that I'd probably have to trade some of them out anyway. So wait for them to go up in price a little bit, maybe 50K, kind of like the AFL fantasy strategy that I'm kind of talking about, just going off value. They pick up 50, 60, 70, 100K, and then wait for those other premiums to drop a little bit, and then you move and adjust. And then you kind of move through your trades quite aggressively to try and get those top 6 guys in. Instead of them losing cash, you're just kind of building with, say, 10 people with value. They're going up, and you're going to finish your team faster-ish by looking at some value. So there would be, Peatling instead of, say, Chera. But then you lose Zorko, you lose Clark. But then you're playing, one less rookie on field, and then playing a Peatling instead of, say, a Chera. So that's the flip side. I think I prefer the way I had it. But I am open to changing that again. So I think Short could go around 100-ish based off the role that he was kind of playing. I think Roberts could go around 100-ish. I think Perryman can go around 100-ish. I think Stewart could go 100 to 115, right? So that's where you kind of go, okay, well, Zorko will probably start on fire, but then he might fizzle and, lose cash. Clark is a pretty big gamble. 105 averaging play, you could always just go up. So if I'm looking at going, okay, say I want Sinclair, say I want Flanders, say I want, who knows who's going to be on that top echelons. There's about 15 defenders that could go 105 to 110. So, who is the top 6? And that's the important part as well. So I think value is definitely important, and then allows you to be flexible, because if I had Zorko and Clark and they're not performing, I'm like, oh, do I keep them? Do I not keep them? And then you kind of end up in that limbo scenario. So whereas at least I know with, say, Roberts and stuff, if they don't do well, cool, I'll keep them for a bit. And then when Mills comes back in, I'm like, cool, well, you can just go to Mills, free up some cash, and then go somewhere else. And then you just pivot and adjust. So that's it. That's my team. The one thing I will say is I have tempted to go with, say, like I said, a Rose instead of a Brayshaw, but I just like that extra VCC option. I don't want to just have Sheasel, Cherry, Neil, for instance, as like my only VC and C options. I'd rather have a few more options than that, which is where I think a Brayshaw or a Chera comes in, Brayshaw or a Sarong comes in. So at least I think 2 primo mids with like, a Cherry or a Gorn or someone plus a Sheasel, then it gives you a little bit more VCC scope, because normally Guns and Rookies, you have a lot more like guys that can bang out big scores for VCNC, whereas spreading the value down a little bit means that you really want to nail your VCNC options, which is where I think, Lions, Fremantle, Carlton, and Port. If you're going to go premiums, I think they're the ones, especially for the VCNC to start, and then you'll get a better side, and then you'll have more options from there. But that's it. Let me know what you think. Is it similar? Is it dissimilar? Probably very dissimilar to some of the rookies that people are playing. And let's just see how you go. That's it. Let me know what you think. And hopefully I'll get on with some Swizz and some bits and pieces coming up. Cheers. I should have one more sip. And hopefully I keep power for a little longer. Stay safe. Stay dry. I'll talk to you later. Bye.